At about 12:30 in the morning, my first night in federal prison, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Naturally, I was concerned to get a tap on my shoulder, considering I'd been in jail for about 12 hours. And the first thing that came to mind was, my God, it's happening, because I'm thinking about things I had seen sensationalized on television about prison. It turned out earlier in the day, I was delusional, lost, confused, had no idea what I was doing. It turned out I had engaged in a deal with a prison hustler to get a better mattress, who then brought me the mattress at 12:30 in the morning. That wasn't the first huge mistake I made within the first 12 hours, however. About 4 minutes after I surrendered to prison, I went to shake hands with the correctional officer that prisoners call guards, and he then said to me, "We don't shake hands with inmates." What I'm getting at is, I didn't prepare. I was a lazy defendant, had no idea what the hell that I was doing. So I wonder, if Elizabeth Holmes is going to go to federal prison, will she prepare? Will she invest the time to understand what that first day in prison will be like? How easily one can get into trouble, a disciplinary infraction, speaking to staff, iPhones, paraphernalia, just continuing to make really bad decisions. Will she take the time to prepare? I know I didn't. I'm filming this video to help her or anyone traversing the system do better, because as we know, this experience can be very difficult on those that love and support us. Before I get into this video and reference a blog our team wrote at White Collar Advice, just a thank you to everyone for joining our community. We just crossed over 7,000 subscribers. Thank you for your engagement, for your feedback, for your criticism and ways that we can do better. We always want to do better because we know your time is valuable. So while you're here, please like and subscribe, and let me dive into what that first day in federal prison will be like for Elizabeth Holmes. So if Elizabeth Holmes goes to prison, will it be a productive experience for her? Can she make great use of the time? Can she contribute to this community? Well, it's easier to do all of that if she is prepared for that first day in prison. So if convicted, I do not think she will be remanded at the day that she's found guilty. If she's found guilty, I don't think she'll endure shackles and chains in Con Air. I believe the judge will allow her to self-surrender. After she leaves the courtroom and the shock and awe sets in, she'll then begin to prepare for prison, eventually, including going to bop.gov to get her inmate number. Mine is 444-99112. It will stick with me for the rest of my life, as her number will stick with hers, like our Social Security number. On that government website, she will also get the inmate handbook that she should read for whatever prison she may go to. I presume it will be Dublin prison in Northern California, presuming her sentence is short enough. Again, she's looking at up to 20 years in federal prison, a very long sentence. You really pay the price if you go to trial by way of the trial tax or penalty. Much easier if you accept responsibility, something Miss Holmes doesn't have any interest in actually doing. Now, back to that first day, she should surrender with a contact list, first name, last name, email. Why? She's going to be mailing letters. She's going to be emailing people. She's going to be visiting with people. She should surrender with any medications. Now, the prison system cares about two things here: keeping costs down, the security of the institution. For that reason, she should only go with a couple of weeks of medication, because they're going to transition any prisoner, including her, to a generic medication, which is cheaper. She should see the dentist one last time before she surrenders, because it takes about a year to get your teeth cleaned in federal prison. Big time waiting list. She should, of course, she could try to roll the dice and surrender with a watch and a pair of shoes, as articulated in Lessons from Prison that all of you can get for free. Don't buy the book. It's free at White Collar Advice. I tried to get in with a Timex watch and a pair of shoes. They said that's a no-go. Thank you. They took the shoes. I think it went to the Correctional Officers Trust Fund. I try to get in with them in part because you can spend $360 a month in prison, but that's to buy your clothes and your food and a lot of over-the-counter medications. I mean, the money goes quickly. So I'd hope to get in with the shoes and the watch to offset what I would have to buy in the commissary. Again, it was an absolute no-go. As she makes her way into this institution, I would encourage her to be very quiet, to sit stoically. As she sits there in the waiting room, waiting to get processed in, they'll ask her for her registration number. She will give it. I would encourage her not to engage in unnecessary small talk with staff or fellow prisoners. A mistake a lot of prisoners make that first day is beginning to form friendships with people without knowing who that person is. They may look like you, they may talk like you, but you don't know anything about them. They could be a camp informant right? They could be looking to turn people in to get more halfway house time, more commissary, to take an extra egg out of the chow hall. A lot of people that first day in prison form the wrong friendships, and then you're kind of guilty by association. So I would advise her to lay low, to not speak to people, to do more listening than talking, to never give unsolicited advice to prisoners or staff, and sit there until called upon. Speaking of calling upon, let's rely on a blog our team wrote at White Collar Advice to better go through this process of her first day in prison. The intake process can really be a rude awakening for new prisoners, especially people that have had a lot of sycophants around them, enablers, yes people, people who tell you exactly what you want to hear, who are afraid to tell you no. So when you go from that environment to being subjugated by staff, by being told where you're going to work, what time you're going to go to sleep, what time you go to the chow hall, with whom you can share space, when you can call home, when you can email, can be an overwhelming environment, especially if you've had so many people um, placating you for a very long time. One part of the process that can be very dehumanizing and very difficult is the strip searching process. As I wrote in Lessons from Prison, the guard laughed at me because I had to do this thing called squat and cough, and I was moving my feet back and forth like I was a sumo wrestler. I just did the whole thing wrong. I'd never done it before. So it can be dehumanizing for anyone to go through a strip search of having to lift up your breasts and squat and cough and bend over and spread them. It can be very hard for someone to endure, especially if they've never done it before. And it's not something that will happen just that first day in federal prison. It will continue throughout the journey when you go to visitation, coming and going. Why? Well, hardly a day passes in America without a guard getting arrested, working with a fellow prisoner to bring in drugs, marijuana, dope, food, iPhones. I mean, I read an article this morning that 50 guards in a Florida prison were arrested in the last week or two. I mean, there's a lot of hustling and bad things going on. That moves to the next thing she should be very aware of that first day is being very careful of that interactions with staff. I know I touched on this a moment ago, but let me reiterate why. If Elizabeth Holmes is convicted, she doesn't believe that she's guilty. Why? She went to trial. The majority of people in prison are, I believe, to be good people who made bad decisions, who are looking to overcome those bad decisions. I served time with a number of people who owned it, who acknowledged it, who want to do better, who are looking to earn a second chance in their community. There's this myth that people who say they go to prison didn't do it. That's TV stuff. The majority of people say, I did it, I want to do better. Well, Elizabeth Holmes is going to trial, so she's not going to identify with someone like me, with a felon, with someone who knowingly broke the law. I did, and I was working to make amends. She don't think she has to make amends for anything. For that reason, it may be easier for her to associate and align with staff, primarily law-abiding citizens, and her fellow prisoners. She should be aware of the consequences that come when you're dealing with staff and trying to avoid any unnecessary communications. That first day, she will spend hours potentially alone in a cell or a room going through this check in process. Eventually, she will meet with a psychologist to go through a medical intake. They will ask, are you suicidal? Can you give us the phone number of someone in case something happens to you? Which can be a little wary to hear that first day, like, wow, I need to give them my phone number in case something happens to me. She should have a number in mind. She may be able to call home that first day or two. She may be able to email within a day or two. And I'd encourage her from that first day to be aware of her communications over the phone and via email, because phone calls are recorded and emails are saved. It's like Big Brother's watching everything that she will be doing. It's in her interest to understand that, and it's in her interest to not try to manipulate this environment to her advantage, at least before she understands it. Too many fellow prisoners from that first day, like my dumbass did, trying to get a mattress 12 hours in, try to manipulate this environment without understanding. It leads to a parade of horribles, to trouble, to drama, potentially disciplinary infractions, getting moved up to a higher security prison. After several hours of getting processed in at the higher security prison, she will make her way to I presume, the federal prison camp, because even if convicted at trial, I don't believe she'll get more than 10 years or 10 years in prison, which would make her eligible for a minimum security camp, probably Dublin. When she hits the compound, so to speak, you got your bed, you got your linens, and it's really self-directed. It's not like a guard's going to come over and say, "Oh, Miss Holmes, welcome to the new prison. It's very nice to know you. I'm so sorry to hear that you're going through this. Let me tell you where the chow hall is, and let me tell you where medical is, and that's your dorm over there. And don't worry, right now you're going to be in the front of the dorm next to the toilets that we call East Los Angeles. But in time, if you adjust well and behave and don't have any problems, you can move to the back of the dorm that some people call West LA or Beverly Hills. Don't worry, Miss Holmes, everything's going to be just fine." It doesn't work that way. It's self-directed. It's like they throw you out, figure it out, have a nice day. Now, I presume, as we articulate in this blog, that some women will come up to her. Many are going to be helpful. "Hi, how are you? We want to help you. We know that this is very hard for you. We've been through it." She's going to stand out like a sore thumb because she's going to probably have orange canvas slip-ons. Think of Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High with the orange slip-ons he wore. Love that movie, filmed in the Valley, not far from where I grew up. So she's going to stand out. Everyone's going to know that she's there. She needs to be very careful about who she accepts some favors from. Granola, Coca-Cola, whatever the hell it is, coffee, shower shoe. She needs to be very careful about who she accepts favors from, because some will have good intentions and say, "I don't want anything in return." Some are going to say, "In 3 days, you'll be shopping in the commissary. Here's my list. Buy me stuff or we have a problem." Kind of like the dude did with me 12 hours into my stay when I got the mattress. Continuing on, while people will want to help her, she needs to be fully aware of that environment. The first thing that I did when I got to prison, I believe one of the first things that she will do once you get into the dorm, is you go look at the toilets and showers, okay? Because you think about prison and you think about filth. Are the showers private? Are they clean? What is it going to look like? I don't know if I should say this on YouTube, but it's my channel. But like, I didn't go to the bathroom for like 5 days after I went to prison. I'm like, I cannot go to the bathroom in here. This is filthy. This is dirty. I can't go. This is awful. I'm going to hold it the whole year that I'm in prison. Again, I was still delusional, but you're just not used to this environment of having to wait in line to use the restroom while holding a roll of toilet paper. That is something that she will be enduring. That much I can tell you. So after she checks out those bathrooms, she's going to roll to her cubicle. There will be a bunk bed along with a bed that's on the floor. So most likely 3 beds in that room. She'll share space with two of her fellow prisoners who can be in for all sorts of crimes, from a white collar crime to a drug crime. Most likely, technically a non-violent crime if she's at the Dublin Federal Prison Camp. Once she gets accustomed to the dorm, I presume she's going to want to work her way around the minimum security camp, check out the track, the library. In many ways, she'll be impressed and hopefully inspired with how much opportunity is actually there. It looks in many ways like a corporate office park or a junior college. There's really ample opportunity for reflection and growth. Around 3 or 4 p.m. ish, at 4 p.m., she'll stand for her first standing count. That's a really big deal in prison. It takes some getting used to. In federal prison, counts are 4 p.m., 10 p.m., midnight, 1, 3, 5, 10 a.m. The 4 p.m. is the national census count you have to be standing for. Essentially, about 15 minutes before each count, you're going to hear over the loudspeaker, and she will hear it that first day, and she will never forget it for the rest of her life. It will say something like, "Attention all campers, the compound is now closed. Please report back to your designated housing unit and prepare for count." Again, the compound is now closed. So you see all the prisoners scurry back to their dorm, get ready to stand for count. That first count for her, she will never forget. Following that 4 p.m. count, she'll probably work her way down to the chow hall for the first time. She shouldn't cut in line. A lot of the lessons we tell people for that first day in prison, it's like what we tell our kids. Don't talk too loudly on the phone. Don't complain. Don't offer unsolicited advice. Flush as you go. Wash your hands after you use the restroom. Don't cut in line. All those things are really good for prison, especially that first day, because everyone will be watching her. So she'll work her way down to the chow hall, and there are prisoners whose job is to work in the buffet line to serve food 3 times a day. Food can be surprisingly good, though she may not be hungry that first week. I know I wasn't. If she's wise, she'll have a huge meal the day or two before she goes in for that last meal. I had a meal like I had a date with the electric chair, truth be told. So the food did turn out to be very good in prison. There is a segregation in the dorm or the dining hall, the chow hall, as they like to call it. And you'll see racists sitting together. She'll pick up on that pretty quickly. Once her dinner's over, she'll go empty her tray. Some prisoners will knock When they're done, I am not a knocker. I would not encourage her or anyone to knock, but it is not uncommon when someone was done with their dinner in prison too. That means it's a wrap. They're getting up there. They're leaving. Following dinner, she'll have several hours to roam the compound until the dorm will close at 9 p.m. So up and until 9 p.m., she can go to the library, walk the track, choose to begin to mingle. Maybe she's had a chance to call home, even have access to email. What's surprising to so many people on that first day is how much autonomy they have, how much time they really have to be productive or complain. And that's why the experience can feel like an eternity. If you have no plan, if you're only going to complain or sit in the TV room like so many people do, controlling that TV room like it's their fiefdom, or if some say, I'm going to make amends, I'm going to create a plan, I'm going to give back, I'm going to prove worthy of a second chance. The choice is hers. I would encourage her because she has a family and those that love and support her to choose wisely. Choosing wisely begins with two final thoughts. One, everyone that goes to prison says they're going to do big and great things. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to rebuild my brand. All of those are great goals. You can't do those things if you're getting into trouble. Every person that goes to prison says, I'm not going to use iPhones. I'm not going to engage in the disciplinary infraction. Yet our team continues to get calls from people who have gotten into trouble. So Elizabeth Holmes has to understand she cannot manipulate this environment, not if she wants to do anything great. Second, people often have big plans about what they're going to do in prison. And then once they get there, the reality sets in. It's a hopeless, desperate environment. Our prison system, if you look at recidivism rates in this country, perpetuates failure. It extinguishes hope. Success from prison really begins from within, not being reliant on a prison program or useless certificate that they're going to give you. So if she can embrace it, or if you're going to prison, unfortunately, if you can embrace it from that first day, you're better positioned to succeed. As she wraps up her first day and puts her head on that pillow with very bright lights in front of her, in front of that dorm, she'll feel a sense of relief that she got through it, a sense of relief that she'll tell herself, this isn't as bad as I thought that it would be, not as bad as I had played it in my mind, a sense of relief that at least she got credit finally for one day served, because I know before you go to prison, you already feel like you're in prison, except you're not getting credit. And that next day, the first full day in prison, is also something worth covering. But for now, I hope you have found value in what that first day in federal prison would be like for Elizabeth Holmes or any high profile person, any defendant traversing this very difficult journey. Again, thank you for letting our team guide and educate you on this system. We're so grateful that you're with us, and we look forward to returning soon with more helpful content. And if you have questions, leave a comment. And again, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for your attention. Be safe, be well. Happy holidays to all of you. Bye-bye.